Um, so when Pam and I talked about this, and we're like a third of the way through a journey program, um, and it continually reminded ourselves about how important our facilitators are. And when I think about that, and what's really going on with facilitators right now, is that we get so excited about this class that we're having and the one that's forthcoming, the next lesson and all that. So we tend to spend our time thinking about it in segments. Okay, like right now we are changing from manual number 1 to manual number 2 and kind of getting excited about that. Well, as I thought about that, I thought, you know what, I need to talk to somebody that really knows about this stuff and was in it from the beginning. And so I could say, and visit and have Pam talk to me. So I thought the first thing I thought about was, as we think about class to class, um, let's step back and look at the big picture and say, okay, Pam, from what you see and the way that you help develop this, what is the desired outcome that you are hoping happens when we get to the end of the journey?
Well, I have a few thoughts.
Of course.
Well, let me wrap this a little bit, Bill, in a story here. So we live out on the Iowa prairie, and my husband primarily is the person, he's very interested in converting basically scrub pasture land into native prairie land. And he's been working at it for a very long time. And he keeps meticulous notes about the native prairie flowers the seed that he plants. And then as the seasons roll around and spring comes and summer rolls on, these flowers start blooming. And each year there's usually more than the year before. And then sometimes we notice that some of the seed, he notices this more than me, some of the seed that he has planted, he's not seeing it. He's not finding them. And what I notice, and the way this relates to me thinking about the participants in our journey or way of life groups, is that different seed grows at different speeds. It's kind of mysterious how it's going to bloom and where it's going to bloom and where it's going to take and what soil is going to work. And then some seed, this is a true story, one particular seed we were very excited about, it was red like this, a flower red like this. It took 5 years before we saw this beautiful, beautiful bloom. And that has been instructive to me as I work with people, that not everybody is moving along at the same rate or speed, or all things equal don't reach the same ends, And so we can, when we're sitting in our leadership seats, kind of get anxious about how things are going to unravel or how people are going to grow. But the fact is, everyone is growing. God made us each to grow. And so if there were an end result or an end that I would want to remind you as facilitators, myself included, is that we are just a part of this whole deal, a timely part, but the Holy Spirit is up to good things uniquely in the lives of each of these people. And we can trust that. We can absolutely trust that. And our hope and what we can put our hand to is helping each person see where their next step of growth is for themselves, or how the Lord seems to be working in their lives, and what they can take responsibility for, how the Lord is encouraging them, or the voices of these new friends are encouraging them. So to the question of sort of what's beyond next week's lesson, I think it would be great to always be listening for the imaginations and the hope and the dreams of each person being ignited by the unpredictability of the Holy Spirit in their lives. And to, as best as we can, pour a little fuel on that so that they don't lose courage, they don't get fearful, and they recognize that God is up to something good.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Mhm.
So let's go down that path a little bit.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
I'm a facilitator and I'm watching my group, and I have in my head that part of my responsibility here is to try to see how this particular seed is growing, the rate, how they're doing, all of this kind of stuff. So how can I, from an adult learnership perspective here, how can I encourage that person to see that in themselves? And then what when you say pour a little gasoline on it or so on and so forth, what does that mean? What does that look like?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind for me, and you maybe say this yourself, is trust the process.
Aha. Okay.
Okay, so there's a lot of process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure is.
And it is educationally sound. In other words, it's built on good foundations of adult education and leadership development, spiritual formation, and it is deepening. It's getting more intense. There's more going on week after week after week. And as a facilitator, we don't really even have to think about that. The process is
Right.
going to do good work.
Okay.
So I think, if I had to choose one thing, I think the voice of encouragement, constantly, the voice of encouragement, encouraging them, and allowing space. This is where, kind of like the flowers around here, allowing space for each adult, each participant to discover things for themselves on their own, in their own timing. We don't have to wring our hands, or as Rob Lowen would say, do some kind of dancing bear act to kind of make things happen.
Yeah, right. And that happens. I mean, I see it, and I think other facilitators see that as well. And then the voice of encouragement is, gee, that was really good. Thank you for sharing, or something along that lines.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're thinking?
Yes, and I think as facilitators, boy, I mean, I was certainly have had this experience. You get done with your session or your gathering early in the morning or late at night or whatever, and you're walking to your car, and it's you know what I'm going to say. You're sort of second guessing yourself. You're wondering if, or this is quite how I thought it was all going to turn out, and I would just lay that right under the wheel of the tire and let it go, because God is up to something good, and we bring our very best, and it doesn't depend on us.
Right.
I mean, we have a part to play for sure, but what we're doing is coming alongside the Holy Spirit in what the Holy Spirit is already up to in those individuals' lives. So helping them see it or clarify it, a text message of, gosh, it sure looked like something good was stirring, or a phone call or a coffee or a note.
Yep. That's cool.
We're just confirming what we're seeing them discover. We don't have to be the answer man or woman.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of paralleling that a little bit, is that you guys have often said, it's not so much the mastery of the material as it is the development of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in our particular situation, we have an hour and a half, and we never get through it all. And a lot of times The stuff we start on is not the stuff we end on. So talk to me a little bit about when you guys write that in the material and you say that, what, other than not talking, I mean, how do I facilitate that development part and not the mastery part? Or, maybe it's not right to separate it, but through it.
Well, each of us as leader facilitators, I mean, anybody who comes around these tables to do this work, have a lot of good things going for them and are very capable leaders.
Right.
Therefore, it's just common for those of us who sit in that seat to feel like we need to bring some levels of expertise and leadership, and that we maybe there's some voice that's sort of saying that we need to know more than they need to know if we're going to be driving this train. And I would just say, again, trust the process. Trust the process. The process is built on firm foundations. And so when we say it's not about the mastery of material, be a student right along with everybody else. And so that's what we mean by don't feel like you have to master or be the answer person. Relax about that. It'll do fine. And open your eyes to paying attention to what we were just talking about a little bit before, about what's going on in people's lives. Where are they noticing what the Lord is up to? What's happening? Seasons of transition are heightened times of activity of what the Lord is up to. And as people move through different seasons of life, it's a heightened time. And so helping pay attention to that, paying attention to what God is doing in the stuff of people's lives, is where we want to encourage you to be.
Okay. So just one final thought, because we're going to run out of time, is I'm a facilitator. You've been doing this a long time. What final comments would you make to, like me and other people like me who are trying to encourage, trying to be a part of people's lives, try to help them see themselves in transition? Give it to us.
Well, I would say as facilitators, we can get a little lazy about the way we approach each week when we're together. We can kind of always do things the same way week after week after week. And there's good in that. It makes people feel safe to some degree. But I would just remind you that everybody learns differently. And even in the 90 minutes or 2 hours that you have together, I would encourage you to do two different things. I would encourage you to consider giving space in that time for people to be alone together, to have quiet, to process their own, what God's doing in their own lives quietly, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, that every conversation, every topic, everything that you're discussing doesn't have, I think where we get lazy is we can always do it in large group.
Right.
And so when we have different conversations or thoughts, I would just encourage each of you as facilitators to think about how to do it differently for energy, for safety, for cultivating friendship, for just the way that adults best learn. That can be a really good way to kind of change things. The other thing that I would say is that we as facilitators want to help each person discover themselves. Okay. But one of the things that's happening in our groups is that there's good self-discovery going on, and that's a good thing. But there's also a beautiful thing that's being happening among us in community.
Mhm.
So a wonderful question can be, let's say you're having a discussion. Well, you just said you did the biblical mandates.
We did.
Everybody shared their biblical mandate.
Mhm. Right.
Individual, 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 individual.
Right.
A wonderful question can be, huh, what did you all, we've all shared our mandates. What did you notice among us?
Right.
And so, like, what did you hear happen tonight? Or we've all talked a little bit about this subject for a while. What did you hear? So you're drawing together a collective noticing, which always is bigger than the individual noticing.
Right.
So it's casting your eyes, our eyes, to something else. It's opening our imaginations to what's happening here among us. And I just think that's really sacred ground.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insight.
Welcome. I wish I could just be right there with all of you.